welcome to the Christchurch Fox Chapel podcast.
The road out of nowhere, had to jump in my car, be a rider in a love game, following the stars. Don't need a book of wisdom, I get no money talk at all.
There's the fastest growing conservative, obviously, evangelical, charismatic,
Astonishing! Downtown,
podcast.
got a club on the moon, just telling all the secrets in a wonderful balloon. She's the heart of the fun fair.
The entire Fox Chapel area.
In a private tune. And
It's one of those misheard lyrics.
What is it? Oh, and a wonderful balloon?
Yeah, it's got me whistling a bright spittoon. That's what my dad told me the lyrics were when this song came out.
What is he saying?
Bridal tune. But they most of what this song was just not.
Oh.
It just I think they just got a dictionary and just sung random words. So they weren't even English.
It's like a Coldplay song. Yeah.
Yes, it's exactly like Coldplay.
I loved true confession. I loved Coldplay when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And finally I started growing as I became a man and put away childish things.
That's right.
And I started looking at their lyrics, and then I just realized that like these songs are all about nothing. Mm-hmm. Like there's just absolutely, it's totally vapid. Yes. I still love
closing
Coldplay
walls
though.
and ticking clocks. It's like, why?
I still love Coldplay though.
Yeah, it's a secret thing.
Or
isn't it?
they're so brilliant that you know all of it makes sense in some sort of way that is way above my head. But I
It's
seriously
annoyingly
doubt that.
catchy. Saw them live, you know, Ben.
Oh yeah,
I did actually see them live. I'm beginning to wonder if I ever did anything else.
yeah. No, with Kat.
No, long before I met Kat.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw him live.
Back in ye day.
What album?
Rush of Blood to the Head.
Oh, that was with the good old days.
Mm-hmm. I think
that was
so.
when they were good. I mean, I'm going to get a lot of complaints, I think, about this podcast. Because I just voiced some strong, fighting words for some people. But I think Viva La Vida was their best album. Except for
X and Y.
X and Y. I loved X and Y, but
And then Cliff, right? Let's all agree.
Milo
After the
Xyloto was like
after this, it absolutely tanked.
fell apart.
Which is what happened to Radiohead.
You think Radiohead tanked?
No, I think actually they were always like 10 years ahead of their time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's more like it.
All right, so
You know what else is way ahead of its time?
the Lord.
The Lord. The Bible.
We've had this language of the fool, which you introduced to us last week.
Fool.
Hence this music we've been playing.
The foolish man built his house on the sand.
He did. And what's interesting about Jesus is he's seeking a relationship with these people.
Yeah.
And I love the reaction of the crowd. So we just have a little bit to look at today. Interestingly, the heading that the editors of my version of the Bible, ESV, have put in is authority of Jesus. So this is all about his authority. And I certainly think that's going on, but I think there's other things going on in these two verses.
Well, the heading is not the biblical authors. There's nothing inspired about it.
No.
It's just what some
clever.
smart people thought. And verse 28, and when Jesus finished these sayings, the crowds were astonished at his teaching, for he was teaching them as one who had authority. Exousia?
Yes. It could be. It's a power word. It is exousia, yeah.
Authority, and not as their scribes or teachers of the law.
So what I'm interested in is the kind of gut reaction of the crowd. So, I mean, you're almost given to believe that they've been silent for the whole time. I don't suppose they were for 1 minute. But there's been nothing going on. We haven't heard from the crowds. Jesus has just talked, right? Mm-hmm. And then the first chance they get to react, or the first chance that at least Matthew gets to record the reaction, is right here at the end, the postscript. And so we get this immediate reaction of the crowds. What are they doing? And it says they were astonished at his teaching, okay? Mm-hmm. So that looks like a reaction to everything that he said. But as you read on in verse 29, you realize, in fact, it's a reaction to the man himself. For he was teaching them as one who had authority and not as their scribes. They're fascinated by the fact that he's different. So I actually don't think it's just a passage about the authority of Jesus. I think it's about the identity of Jesus.
The way that he teaches. I'm reading a novel right now called The Promise by Chaim Potok. He was a Jewish rabbi and novelist in New York in like the, I don't know, 60s and 70s. And
this is part of your mission to prove how working class you are, has it been?
just a really down to earth,
relatable blue collar
good,
guy.
relatable. Yeah, that's right. No, it's one of the, honestly, his books are probably some of the best stuff I've ever encountered. It's brilliant. But he's like, he's talking about like a lot of this guy who's in a yeshiva, which is like a Jewish seminary sort of thing. And they all, what they study there is the Talmud, which is basically this multi-volume recording of, basically it's all of the commentators, all the ancient commentators on the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, all together, and what they say. And so it was just an interesting insight that like a lot of Orthodox Jews have, at least the rabbis have, if you ask them like about why is sacrifice needed, they'll say, well, Rabbi so-and-so said this, and then, but this other rabbi said this, and they're memorizing the Talmud, which is the commentary on the Pentateuch. Right. And then there's commentaries on the Talmud. Which
is that Mishpat? Is that commentary on the commentary?
I want to say Mishpat might be part of the Talmud.
What kind of folk kind of understandings? Authoritative folk understandings, right?
But yeah, both might be under the umbrella. I don't know. Okay. I don't know enough to.
We should get Yair to come in and explain it to us. So Yair is the local rabbi at Adat Shalom, and I love talking to him about this stuff. I often ask him questions about it, and he will say, I think Mishpat is kind of authoritative body of rabbinical teaching. I don't know how it fits in exactly with what you're saying, and one or two of our listeners will know actually, but. What's fascinating is he's always got some kind of colour that he can add. And like you say, there's this, Rabbi so-and-so says. So we actually encountered this, didn't we, in our teaching on divorce and remarriage, when we looked at that whole question of some people come up to Jesus, they say, what's your view on any cause divorce? Can a man divorce his wife for any cause? Any cause divorce was like a loaded term in rabbinical circles, and Rabbi Hillel and Rabbi Shammai, they disagreed on the basis or grounds for which you could divorce. So one said, if your wife got ugly or burnt the toast, you could just get rid of her. And the other said, no, there needs to be kind of adultery, and then you should divorce her. And Jesus wades into it. They ask him, are you Hillel or Shammai? And he says something completely different. He says, well, you can do it for adultery, but you shouldn't. That's a précis of a lot of discussion. You have to get the tape for that one. But it's intriguing. Here we go again. They're referencing their kind of leading rabbis, aren't they? And
it's all the authority is sort of like derivative. It's all like
referencing references,
which is all we do. Like they maybe if you say like he taught as one of them who had authority and not as their pastors. I mean, because that's which we should. Like I think it's entirely proper that the scribes teach that way, because if you want to
but it's not like a seminary essay with loads of footnotes. This author says that, and that author, is not cross-referencing all of his sources. And
Jesus, no, he's like, it's like, well, this is what I think, because I and the Father are one. So
of all of the things they could be reacting to, what Matthew says that is the thing they're reacting to. Of all of the things they could react to, and we've been through this series now for 2 whole summers. I mean, he's dismantled effectively Judaism and most of Western Christianity also. He's dismantled this notion that you could be good and make God love you through getting things right. That's an earthquake. And then he's demonstrated to them that they're not that good in 18 highly practical ways.
18 practical reasons why you are not that good.
Let's talk about lust. Oh, well, is that not your thing? Okay, well, how about money? No? Judging. All right then. Anxiety. He's talked about all of these human conditions and problems and says these are evidences of the fact that you're not God. And you need to be good enough for God. And you're not.
Yeah.
That's an earthquake.
I think that going through the Sermon on the Mount has really shown me just how perfectly contoured it is to expose my heart.
Yes.
It really, like Jesus goes right for the heart. He is not interested in mere outward formalism at all.
No.
There's no way with an impure heart that you can keep the Sermon on the Mount.
He says it over and over again. But what's fascinating is that's not the thing they're reacting to. And he, having demolished this notion of self-salvation by works or what have you, religiosity, he builds in its place something even more potent, even more compelling, and that is the doctrine of salvation by grace through faith.
Yeah.
Saying that the will of God is for you to repent of the fact you've not kept the will of God, and if you do that, then you'll be within the will of God. Well, that's amazing. He's dismantled something. He's remantled something even bigger and better that's completely novel, transformed the world, and that's not the thing they're reacting to. Now, I find that fascinating.
Yeah, it's not that it's not the novelty of it, but the way that it's put. It's the authority that he claims in it. Because if you think about it, none of it could have been if to a Jew who really knew the Old Testament, none of this could have been that new. They must have been like, oh yeah.
This wouldn't be new to a decent materialist, most of it.
It's not.
You need to be a bit less judgy. You need to be a bit more generous. Don't sleep around. Don't thump people. Just kind of, don't hit people in the face. There's lots of stuff in there that you would think, well, yeah.
Although some of it though, like, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are the meek.
Yeah.
Don't seek vengeance, but leave it to God. Turn the other cheek. Go 2 miles if someone asks you to go 1.
But that's not the stuff that they're reacting to, which is so fascinating. What they're reacting to is the fact that he's not cross-referencing his sources like a seminary student. His essay would get an F, right?
If you didn't know, if he's not God, well, even as he is God, he is egocentric. Which is because he is the ultimate value in the universe.
He's the ultimate I am.
If God is not self, like things like pride, which are vices in us. C.S. Lewis said this. If the things that are vices in us, in God, are perfectly good because it's true.
I joked a few weeks ago about how I'd been sent an essay at seminary on forgiveness. The question was, must a Christian forgive? Yeah. And I said one word, yes, and then there was one footnote, and it was Matthew 5, 7. Matthew 5, 6, 14. Right, was what I was. And I joked, if Jesus had written that essay, he would have said yes, and the footnote would have said me. Yeah. He would have referenced himself as the authority for the proposition and not something else.
Well, let's look at the form of the language, right? Yes. You have heard. I'm just opening it up randomly to the end of chapter 5. You've heard that it was said, "You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy." But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you.
Actually, you picked a fascinating one there. Because I did a little bit of reading before, which is unusual, actually this is not what it says in the law. Funnily enough, you've picked the one that the Bible doesn't actually say.
Well, he says you've heard that it was said.
Yeah, but in all the other you've heard it said, they're usually references to Scripture, right? So you heard it said to those of old, "You shall not murder." Well, yeah, where have they heard that said?
Well, no.
In the law.
I think that you shall love your neighbors in the law, but the part about hating your enemy, I think the tradition had developed that.
Yes, right. So it's kind of funny. So he starts off by saying you've heard the law, not just the law, the 10 Commandments, don't murder. You've heard the law, not just the law, the 10 Commandments, don't commit adultery. You've heard the law on retaliation, eye for an eye. That's the Deuteronomical law. You've heard the kind of additional core laws. Deuteronomical. But then when he gets to this other thing, I guess you've also heard things that have built up around the law.
Yeah.
Your ideas, teachings from your rabbis. You've heard this sort of thing that's a mingling of the law with a bit of extra sauce. And
well, sorry to interrupt you.
No, go on.
But they wouldn't have known, the average Jewish person wouldn't have known the difference because what they didn't have codexes. They didn't have Bibles of their own.
No.
So they don't have anything to check what the rabbi says against that. It's just the tradition is authoritative in a way that we have a way to return to the source that they didn't.
We're blessed with that, aren't we? But I think the intriguing thing is that he starts out with the absolute core law, right?
Yeah.
The Ten Commandments, the one that was actually written by the hand of God onto bits of rock and then smashed. But he starts off with this. Then he gets to Deuteronomy, which is pretty core law. It's secondary law. It literally means that, but it's solid law.
Yeah.
Right. And then he gets onto the law with a little bit of color. And you've heard all these things said all the time by not just your rabbi, but by God. And then he says, "But I say to you,"
I say to you. Yeah.
over and over again, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I say to you, but I say to you, but I say to you. You've heard God say this thing, but let me tell you this. Crumbs, that's a sentence, isn't it? Imagine if you stood up on Sunday and said that. You know, you've probably heard God say, but I've got a better idea.
I hope that our people are, I think that there would be many conversations on Monday morning.
There would be.
As there should be. The first one will be with you. Actually, that'd be Sunday afternoon.
Complaints department to be busy.
Yeah.
So, of all of the things they could be struck by, it's that. And
Yeah.
I wondered if you were sort of suggesting, because he says that motif so often, that repetition of "you've heard it said, but I say to you," that maybe that's stuck in their minds a bit, because it's like a refrain.
I
wondered if that's what you were getting at when the way you phrased something earlier.
I think I was saying that like they couldn't distinguish often between God's revelation and their tradition's interpretation of that revelation.
And maybe they weren't even trying to.
So when he says, "You've heard that it was said," he's basically lumping all those things together, and essentially claiming their understanding of God's revelation has been distorted because the tradition has distorted it over these years, and they don't really have any way to separate out the wheat from the chaff.
And he is doing.
And he's doing that now. The rabbi, capital R, is here. God has come and is now giving the authoritative interpretation.
Yeah.
And they get this, I think. I think that they know on some level, like, this is different than any other teaching we've ever heard.
I think the fact they've let him finish is indicative of the fact they were rapt. I mean, you know that kind of Hebraic style of discourse was very, noisy and interactive, and there's a lot going on, hubbub, and people shouting out questions and arguing back and forth. It was very like that, wasn't it?
It's like a CCYM teaching.
Much more like a CCYM. Well, imagine a CCYM teaching where they've been quiet the whole time. And the first thing they react to is not the dismantling of Judaism, and it's not the creation of a new doctrine of grace, or a weightier doctrine of grace, if you want to sort of dig into that whole question. It's the fact that Jesus, in his manner, is dismantling everything they believed and doing it on his own say-so.
Yeah.
And no one's chucking stuff. Like, this would look like, a barroom brawl normally. I mean, when Jesus says things a bit blasphemous, that people chuck stones because that's the penalty for blasphemy. But no one's throwing stones. It doesn't say when Jesus finished his sayings, the crowds threw rocks at him.
This is the thing that I find really interesting. Like, I can see how a very religious rabbi or one of the scribes or teachers of the law would have really struggled with Jesus. They would have really felt like he was tearing down the edifice of something that God had built. And it would have been hard to have been open to him and to get that out of the way. And I guess the takeaway that I get from that is that there can be a time and a way that your religion can actually get in the way of your receiving Christ. And so I think that's a delicate balance. You shouldn't go out into the wilderness after every person who sounds like a heretic. But Jesus comes and he says a lot of things here that, like, if I was an Orthodox Jew in 30 AD, I would have been like, my antenna would have been up for yellow flags, sort of.
Well, one of the remarkable things is, well, there's several, I guess. First of all, chapter 8, when he came down from the mountain, great crowds followed him. So they're like, we want to see some more. Behold, a leper came up to him and knelt before him, and Jesus heals the person of leprosy. So
It's chapter 8?
Yeah.
Oh, right after this happens.
And so immediately he demonstrates his authority with a physical miracle. So that's an interesting thing. But not only that, I think even before that, because the crowd's reaction is before that.
Yeah.
That's reaction number 2. The crowd's initial reaction is to be astonished by his authority. And maybe there's no rock chucking because there's a spiritual move going on. And what he says makes a great deal of internal sense. He's not said anything stupid.
Yeah.
He's not said anything wrong. What he said makes enormous amounts of sense. I mean, apart from the fact that he's dismantled everything they believe, when he says about anger, for example, that hating someone in your heart is a moral equivalent to actually killing them with your hands. He's not wrong, is he? I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're hiding behind this idea that you're just fantasizing about murdering people.
Yeah.
Well, okay, he's not wrong, is he? When he talks about lust and lustful intent in your heart and the thought life and what you might fantasize about when no one's looking.
Yeah.
He's not wrong, is he? I mean, that is. Would your wife be pleased if she could catch you doing that? No.
Yeah.
She'd be just as hurt, really, as if you were going all the way with an actual person in a bedroom. So
he's insistent
he's
upon
not wrong.
Total purity.
Yeah, he is. He is. And in doing so, he's demonstrating the sort of moral equivalence they've been going through and saying, well, God will be happy with, the bar being lowered to roughly where I behave. There's so much internal consistency in what he's saying that I think it's difficult for them. Because he's magnifying God. It's not like he's tearing God down when he says, you've heard it said.
Yeah. Yeah, he makes the standard of the law even more rigorous than it was.
Right. And that's an interesting thing because that's kind of what the Pharisees did. But when the Pharisees did it, they were only raising the bar to their own levels. And Jesus is raising the bar above their levels, which is why he says that your righteousness must exceed that of the scribes and Pharisees. That's chapter 5, verse 20. I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. So he's raised the bar above the greatest people they've ever known.
Well, I think that actually a lot of people practically struggle with this. Like, they're like, well, I can't keep the Sermon on the Mount like perfectly. No one, God's holiness is so much above me. So I'm not even going to try.
Great. And isn't that, well, and so this is why I think you and I have in our preaching been talking about context so much. That if you just rip a verse, a text without a context is a pretext for a proof text. You can't just rip one line out and say, there you have it. You've got to look at the whole thing. Why is Jesus showing us how impossibly high the standard is? So he can laugh at us as we go off to hell?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I was agreeing with you. Oh. I wasn't like, yes, that's it.
Just checking. Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe he is doing it. No.
We'll have to go through 6 little boxes on a napkin, I think. So obviously what he's doing is he's showing actually that God is even bigger and better than you thought. And so there must be some other way. If God is going to say, hello, you fool, I love you, as Sept once said, then there must be some other way. How can God love a fool? That's the question that we're wrestling with right here, that Sept was wrestling with, in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
They were ahead of their time, perhaps.
They were ahead. Wow, this is like a chiasm, this podcast.
That's beautiful. There must be some other way.
There must be some other way. How can a person who is how can a group of fools and hypocrites actually become righteous, have their house built on the rock?
And what I find so fun about this, right, is how little actual airtime Jesus gives to the gospel. Very little. if you were to add up all the words or the sense units or whatever, the sentences, and say, what are they about? And color code them with your highlighters, because we do this sometimes in Bible study.
Yes.
Right. And let's say that gospel was going to be green, because, green's good. Specifically, actual gospel verses, there's just a couple, really. Just a couple. They appear in the intro and the interlude.
What we would call the indicative, like what's true.
Well, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. And it's passive and it's future indicative. So it's going to happen to you by grace as a gift without any effort of your own.
Yes.
That's it in the Beatitudes, as far as I can tell. And then we'll go through all this stuff about not sleeping around or hitting people or what have you. And then you get to the Lord's Prayer. And I think you get, give us our daily bread and forgive us our debts.
Yeah.
And I think, unless I'm wrong, that's it.
Well, I suppose maybe you have to read on the rest of the gospel to get that.
No, but this is his speech, right? This is his sermon. And his Sermon on the Mount, which is the best sermon ever written, right, astonishes the crowds. In terms of percentage of words he dedicates explicitly to the gospel and what it is, you've got about 10 or 15.
Why?
I don't know. Isn't that interesting? I don't know. I find that interesting.
If you had to, take a guess.
What, just make stuff up?
Yeah, that's what we do here anyways.
Okay. They're proud, so he needs to spend more of his time making them feel bad.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe there's a...
I don't know.
I mean, he's the master shepherd, right? He's the greatest pastor. He knows he's situating the inbreaking reign of God in the everyday human life in a really, it's extremely practical. And so he's kind of almost like he's sort of chopping down all of the false crutches that people are leaning on.
He's doing a lot more knocking down and exposing and destroying than building in this sermon, because of what's going. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? It's just interesting that the gospel is clearly here, and the reason why we've stressed the importance of the intro and the interlude is because if you don't know the intro and the interlude as the context of the Sermon on the Mount, it would just look like a load of rules.
Well, sometimes I think I've become very eager to bring comfort. And comfort is good, but God is not always that eager to bring comfort. In the same way that a surgeon is not really that concerned about whether this is a comfortable thing for this person. They're taking a scalpel and they're cutting out infection, or they're drilling screws into bones. They're doing all kinds of things that are very, very uncomfortable that ultimately lead to the flourishing in life. So their long-term aim is health, which is better than comfort.
And this is the case with Christ, right? He wants to save us. And so first, we must be convicted of just how far short of God's perfect standards we fall. And to a culture that was based upon self-righteousness, most of his airtime is dedicated to bursting that particular bubble.
He does comfort the afflicted, but he also afflicts the comfortable.
He does.
And he does a lot of, maybe more afflicting of the comfortable than comforting of the afflicted in this. But it's funny. It's interesting that right after the sermon, he's immediately, what's he doing? He's cleansing lepers. He's healing many. He's he's healing the centurion's servant, bringing the outsiders in.
Great point. That his immediate interactions are with outsiders, the leper who is ceremonially unclean, that they're not able to participate in any of the temple life, and so they look like they're cursed by God, and they were idiomatically thought of as the most pitiful people. And then a centurion who's just a foreign dog, a dirty invading foreigner.
You mean D-O-G, not D-A-W-G.
Not
correct?
A dog, no.
Just being clear. Yeah.
We had some Snoop Dogg on the podcast the other week, didn't we?
We did, yes.
So
he heals men with demons, driving out demons, healing a paralytic, calming a storm.
Nature miracles, getting rid of the demons, dealing with sickness, dealing with Gentiles, all this stuff. He's rolled his sleeves up. But before he does that, he does this sermon, and 99% of it is, let me tell you how you're getting things wrong. And that's just a fascinating homiletical plot. Like, we don't preach that way.
No, we don't. Maybe we should. I don't know. Well, we're not Jesus. There's a lot of ways that Jesus preaches that I will not and cannot preach because I'm not Jesus. So...
No, but he does say at the beginning of his Sermon on the Mount, which is Matthew 5:13, you are the salt of the earth. And he says in verse 14, you are the light of the world. Well, in John's Gospel, we read Jesus say, I am the light of the world. And now he says, you are. And so he is calling us to be Christ-like.
Yeah. Little Christs, as I've heard it said.
Yeah, little Christs. All right. They're astonished by the fact that he's teaching with authority. Interestingly, not so astonished at the dismantling of everything they'd ever thought. That's interesting. And
well, maybe they're just like, all the rest will shake its way out if you just have the person figured out. If you can just, if things are just right if you can be captivated by him, then the rest it'll work out. He's
also accusing the Pharisees of being ritualistically lax, which is hilarious, right? Because in 5:19, right, for example, he says, therefore, whoever relaxes one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. Isn't that funny? He's saying these Pharisees, the problem is they're relaxing the law too much. I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you'll never enter the kingdom of heaven. So the problem with all of these religious zealots is they're not religious or zealotish enough. Funny.
They're actually lukewarm in their zeal.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
But it stands to reason. It makes sense. If God is perfect and you've got a man-made law that's really hard, that's not perfect, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just watched Mission Impossible 2 last night. There's a little line. And he said, well, I'm glad that it's only difficult because this is not mission difficult, is it? It's Mission Impossible. Now get on with it. And it's so funny. It's like...
That's so self-referential.
It is funny. It was a terrible movie.
Yeah, I remember that one being terrible.
It was shocking.
Is that the one about chemical weapons?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like a kind of COVID thing.
Or a biological war. Yeah.
Yeah.
That creeped me out, actually, for a long time when I saw it as a kid.
Yeah, not as much as the actual pandemic.
No,
it's basically the same plot, and it's extraordinary. But right here you've got these Pharisees who are like, "Oh, it's really difficult." It's like, yeah, well, guess what? It's actually impossible.
Yeah, you think that you're straining because you think that you're better than you are. You think that you're in the ball game, but you have no idea.
Yeah, that's it.
Sometimes I think about, in my ministry, that someday I'll stand before the judgment seat of God and have like a smile and a twinkle in his eye and be like, you really thought that you were like, you thought that you were right on it. Let me just show you like how you were stumbling through all of this and I was working.
I've been thinking about the parish hall ceiling tiles because...
Yes, you have. You have been thinking about the parish hall ceiling tiles.
Because if you get that first row ever so slightly off, and then by the time you get to like the 8th row, it's a bit skew whiff, and by the time you get to like the 30th row, it's wonky donkey land. It's just everywhere. And when one thinks about eternity, if you were to bring in something to eternity that was really, really, really good,
yeah,
the best ever, given enough space and enough time, it's out of plumb. It's off. It's gone.
It's lame.
And so the Lord can't introduce into eternity some really good thing that's less than perfect.
So, yeah.
It'll just turn heaven into hell eventually.
The holiness of God cannot be compromised.
No, indeed. And Jesus, I think he's upholding this holiness of God, and that just makes total sense.
Speaking of compromise, aren't the ceiling tiles just like a tiny little bit off, like a centimeter or something like that?
Well, that's because the sub-ceiling is off.
Yeah.
and the actual building is off, and the walls are not square, and lots of other things. Does it bother me? No,
not at all.
No, not at all.
I only think about it extending into eternity.
That's right. I wouldn't be able to sleep in that room unless I sort of lay on my side. Yeah.
That's good enough.
Great reference to Birmingham, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, anytime. If you don't know what I'm talking about, listen to the previous podcast to this.
So the crowds are astonished. They're astonished at the authority with which Jesus speaks. It's not like anything they've ever heard before. He's dismantled everything they ever believed, but that doesn't seem to be getting them. He's given them a way to God, and that doesn't really seem to be getting them either. I think that's hilarious. Mm-hmm. What strikes them is the authority with which he teaches. And he's taking the words of God and other authoritative things and saying, yeah, let me add a bit more to this.
Yeah.
And he's raising the bar all the time until it becomes impossible by our human effort to meet the bar.
Yeah.
And that's a new idea. And then he offers them 15 words of grace, maybe, if they're passing the passive.
But you don't need, like, when you just need, all you need is one word of grace when you understand. You know, like you don't need a sermon. You just need one word spoken authoritatively by the master. Like, and that does everything.
Right. And that perhaps is the point I'm trying to work out in my head. At the end of all of this, they seem to have been attracted specifically to him, to he himself.
Yeah.
And not to an idea or an argument, but to the man. And that is the thing, I think, that's where the power is.
That's what it makes me think of something Fyodor Dostoevsky, a great Russian novelist, said. He said, if it somehow happened that Christ were outside of the truth and I had to choose, I mean, obviously I don't think this is the case, right? No. But I had to choose between the truth and Christ. I would choose Christ.
Because he's good.
Because he's like, I don't know, I think it's a kind of false dichotomy because Christ is the truth and his goodness. The reason you love him is because truth is he is the truth.
But he's making the point. I'm so in love with Christ that this isn't about a dry academic argument for me. It's about the man.
It's person-centric.
Hello, you fool, I love you. I think this is fundamentally a call to a relationship with God. And what they're astonished by is the idea they might have one. Something like that.
Yeah.
I might have a relationship with God through this man.
This man might get the job done for me. He might take me all the way.
He might be God. I mean, these are all the sort of swirling possibilities. I mean, we know that all of those things are true, but something about him has attracted them when what he's in fact done is just insulted them.
I think that a lot of people who start coming to church for the first time are kind of in that place. Actually, they're like, not sure if they can make that full on claim. Like, is Jesus God? What does that even mean? But there's something just attractive about Jesus. And I don't actually think that that's not a bad place to be, to start being in love with Jesus. And then from there, the dominoes fall into place. Yeah. I mean, it's not enough to be like, yeah, Jesus is a friend of mine, but like,
yeah.
You know, but I think that once you see his allure, the Holy Spirit takes care of the rest.
That's the thing that's going on here that we've not talked about very much, but the Spirit is clearly at work.
Yeah.
Through this in this moment, and people are being drawn to him through the power of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
I think maybe you get that sense much more from John's Gospel and later on in Matthew.
Yeah.
But there's a dynamic going on here, and maybe the thinnest thread that we've got of that right here is the word that you pointed out at the beginning of the podcast: authority, exousia.
Exousia.
Which is a word that can be associated with the Spirit, not the only one.
Oh, really?
Dunamis, which is another similar
power.
Yeah, word in Greek would be the more Holy Spirit one. But it is.
You receive power. Yeah.
it is the governing power of Christ that seems to have struck them quite so much, which is amazing.
Yeah. And his right to speak.
Yeah, and his right to speak, and the fact that he is right when he speaks. They're drawn to the man.
I'm bummed that this Sermon on the Mount series is over.
It ended a week ago.
Well, yeah, I'm bummed that it's over. I always enjoy preaching through books of the Bible, but this section has been especially mind-bending and fruitful for me, I think. So
yeah, my apprehension about it was that it would be dry or too legalistic. With it being a sort of amplification of the Ten Commandments and other things. I was like, oh man, this is going to just be a beating. And
quite the opposite, I think.
Quite the opposite.
Yeah.
We move on in a week to 2 Thessalonians, new series.
2 Thessalonians.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too.
We're going to look at the waiting and the working and the watching.
The working while you watch and wait, or the watching while you work and wait, or the waiting while you watch and work.
Yeah, we're going to refine the title a little.
I'm just going to continue to confuse it and conflate things. Yeah. What does it mean for, how do we be Christians? How do we follow Jesus in this time where we're kind of waiting for God to break into history and bring this world to a good conclusion? Yeah.
How do we be watchful for the return of Jesus? What do we need to do until he comes?
And if all that's the case, does anything that we're doing here and now, does it really matter? These are the questions. Well, thank you, Alex. A true tour de force today.
It must have been.
They're back.
Because look who showed up.
They've been slacking these days.
They've been off studying the speeches of Winston Churchill.
As they should.
Well, this has been a podcast of Christ Church Fox Chapel. So glad that you would join us. Thanks for listening, and of course, thanks for stopping by.
Stay classy.